Hello, I'm Erik Christiansen, and I wanted to give a brief demo of this prototype I developed called the Archive, which is a Notes app. As I've talked about in this portfolio page, I wanted to develop a Notes app prototype that had a slightly different look and feel from the competition. Many Notes apps are very sleek, they're very modern in their design, which is laudable, and that's terrific. But they don't always have kind of the retro feel that I was going for. So with this particular app, what I've done here is that I have tried to develop something that's a little bit different, and I wanted to show you the animations and kind of what I learned because the screenshots don't capture that. So I'm going to walk you through the frames of this app. The first frame is the login. So I'm envisioning that this application allows the user to log into their account, potentially save information in the cloud. I have developed or included a background that is kind of a vintage paper feel, and it persists through the whole app. It's supposed to remind the user of actual folders for storing information, and that kind of feeds into the retro view that I had. I developed the logo, which is very simple. It's just an archival box with "The Archive" as the title, with kind of this spiraling picture. I got the images from open source sources, as well as the icons from openly licensed sources too. So I try to use openly licensed materials wherever possible. So the next frame, it would be the home screen. And so the home screen isn't perfect. I mean, of course, there's some things I'd probably change now, but the goal was just to envision something that allowed someone to jump to a bunch of places. One of the things I noticed in tools like Apple Notes is that they have, a big list of tags below. They have some folders, but I really wanted a jump point where people could go to different things right away without having to go through the navigation. So we have like a section where you can search. Of course, there is a search that's persistent in the header, but there's a prominent search right up front. There's the ability to create a new note, create a new folder, look at all your notes, as well as look at your most recent notes, and then a list of all the different tags that you use to tag your notes. So just kind of like a one-size-fits-all starting place. I wanted to kind of envision a couple of ways to develop folders. Again, folders are things that all apps, Notes apps do, but they don't do a few things that I would like. They don't allow for a lot of customization. So in this example and in this prototype, I like the idea of being able to customize folders with images. So again, I used open source images here to kind of add a flair and to kind of show me what that particular folder and what the notes in it are going to be about at a glance without just having to rely on the description. I envisioned here that there would be kind of using this sort menu, you'd be able to sort the folders and then also change the view as necessary. One thing I'll also point out is that there is a persistent header with the settings. These aren't active, they're just for show. A search, an icon to always get back to that home screen splash page, the ability to create a new folder, and then also a new note kind of anywhere where you are. But back to the folders, I also envisioned this idea of having a grid for showing notes. So, I mean, this list view is great for showing horizontal scrolling in XD, but to incorporate the vertical scrolling, but to incorporate the horizontal scrolling, I thought, it'd be really interesting if you kind of had a preview of your notes within each folder. So the idea here is that under the blog folder, we would have, the most recent notes that we've created, and then we could, click this arrow and it would potentially expand down and show us everything. So again, a different way to view notes that's not really present in current Notes apps. Again, so this is just a notes view going inside the blog folder. So this is, just a notes view, a list view of all the notes, and you can scroll through this vertically. And then I also developed a couple of different sample notes. And this is important because one of the things that I noticed through other applications is that they're pretty good at having consistent, icons and menu interface elements throughout. And then of course, when you go to develop or you go to compose a note, then of course the interface has to change a little bit. So at the bottom here, rather than our, create a new folder, compose a new note, if we clicked compose a new note and we went to this, then of course we can edit a note or create a new one, and then we get our editing tools at the bottom. This is a very simplified view. One of the things I noticed in many notes apps is that you actually have to scroll horizontally through the different editing tools for a given note, and I find that a bit cumbersome. So I decided just to kind of go through, I looked for some different icons for either Adobe or Material icons, and just kind of simplified the whole thing. And the idea would be that once you start clicking on a note, the keyboard would come up, and then these would be floating above the keyboard, and then you could get rid of this by clicking on the keyboard down button. This note does show one thing that's quite interesting, which is the ability to have an embedded map. And this shows how you can have a map or something where you can scroll in all directions. So if I was planning a trip to Havana, a place I've actually been, then I could embed a map or something like that. This is another example of a potential note, what it would look like. Again, this has lots of horizontal scrolling, embedded images, and then potentially a checklist. So this is an overview, or this has been an overview of my kind of prototype for the Archive Notes app that was built in Adobe XD.